Hello and welcome to the course of U.S. history. I'm your host, Mr. Samuelson. Last time we were together, we looked at Portugal and the Age of Exploration, and we specifically looked at how that Portuguese Age of Exploration began as a search for a sailing route to China and India. Today, we're going to be looking at the slightly more famous voyage of Christopher Columbus. This is lesson 1-2.3. Now, let's start by talking about Marco Polo's geography once again. Now, Marco Polo, this individual who had explored Asia in the 1200s, had come back and told Europeans all these stories, and that story had included a tale about the island of Cipangu, which is modern Japan. Now, his geography on this was a little bit off. He believed that this island, which you can see right here, was about 1,500 miles off the coast of China. And by Christopher Columbus's math, that meant that it was reachable from Europe. Now, with this 1,500-mile coastline, again, you can see here the outline of the modern United States. You can see he's going to be angling himself right toward Cipangu, believing that he can reach it because it is so far off the coast. Now, the reality is Japan is nowhere near that far from the coast, and China is much further away from Europe than he believed it was. But Columbus believed fervently that he could reach Cipangu by sailing west. And so that was his plan. Now, a little bit about Christopher Columbus himself. He's not just some random guy who comes up with an idea. He is a very notable, well-known sailor of the time. He was an Italian from the city of Genoa who learned to really sail under the Portuguese leadership. When Prince Henry the Navigator had put together his school of navigation that attracted all the best sailors in Europe. And Columbus certainly was a good captain and knew how to navigate very well and was attracted to Portugal for that reason. Now, it was while he was sailing for the Portuguese that he comes up with his idea for sailing west. And he approaches the King of Portugal and asks for ships in order to make this voyage. Now, the Portuguese are the best navigators in the world at the time. They know science, they know astronomy, they know navigation. They have a better picture of what the world will look like than anybody else. And putting all these brilliant minds together, they say, absolutely not. China is way further than you think it is, Columbus. Your math is wrong. No ships for you. Well, Columbus remains committed to his plan. So he leaves Portugal and he goes to Spain. And he asks the Spanish monarchs, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, in order to get support and get money for his voyage from them. Now, the Spanish at this point are far, far, far behind the Portuguese in their exploration of the world. And they're very limited based upon a treaty that they have signed with Portugal about how they can sail and where they can explore and colonize. But this sailing west plan is an opportunity for them. And so they give Columbus some ships because there's no other way for them under their current treaties to explore the world and catch up with what Portugal has managed to do with the leadership of Prince Henry. So Christopher Columbus has his ships. And in August of 1492, Columbus sails the ocean blue. He leaves Spain with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Now, he leaves at a very good time. He's got clear weather. He's got favorable winds. He knows how to navigate. So he chooses the best possible route for this voyage. But his sailors start to get nervous. This is at a time when people sail within sight of land. They don't leave sight of land, especially not for very long. And when his men get out of sight of land for more than a month, they start to get nervous. And eventually the crew grows so nervous that they demand that they return or they will mutiny. That is, they will take over the ship, throw Columbus in a room down below, lock him up, take the ships, and go home. They are demanding that Columbus turn back. But Columbus is committed. And so he pushes on. And in order to avoid this mutiny, he comes up with a deal to make to his sailors. He asks for 3 days, 3 more days of sailing. And if they hit that third day and they have no sight of land, they'll turn back. Now, there are suggestions within Columbus's diary that he did not actually intend to sail back, but Columbus lucks out. Because with just those 3 days, which his crew grants him, they're able to find sight of land. Now, they don't see land right away. Instead, they see branches, tree branches, floating in the water. But the only way for tree branches to get into that particular water, with the way the currents and the wind were blowing, was if there was land actually nearby. Otherwise, those tree branches would have gotten waterlogged and they would have sunk. These were relatively fresh branches in the water. Land had to be nearby. And indeed it was. On October 12th, the ships land on the island of San Salvador, which is Spanish for Holy Savior, so named because this saved their voyage. Now, Columbus, of course, believed that he had landed in the East Indies. Looking at his view of the world here, we have Cipangu right here and Europe right there. He believes he's missed this main island, but he's landed somewhere in these islands, that Cipangu must be nearby, that he's somewhere off the coast of Asia in the East Indies. This down here is a map of what is modern-day East Indies, or mostly the nation of Indonesia and a couple of others, Malaysia, Philippines as well. This is the East Indies today. This is not where Columbus was. But believing that's where he was, and meeting the natives of the area, a Native American group known as the Taino, Columbus starts to refer to them as Indians. And as it will be more than a decade before anybody knows that they're not in the Indies, this name, Indians, will stick. And the Native Americans will be referred to as Indians for quite some time. That was a voyage of Columbus. Next time, we're going to be looking at Columbus's role in establishing Spanish colonies and what his future voyages look like and how they impact the history of North America. Thank you very much, and farewell.